Silk Road, often referred to as the eBay for drugs.
It sounds like the plot of a movie. A U.S. man was able to hide behind a false identity, operating a sophisticated illegal drug website.
The FBI calls it the most sophisticated criminal marketplace on the internet. Thousands of drug dealers used it to sell drugs and completely hide their identities.
A new website sells illegal drugs to anyone who is willing to pay.
Silk Road.
Silk Road.
Silk Road.
Silk Road.
Silk Road.
This is Ross Ulbricht. He's the founder of the Silk Road, the first online marketplace on the dark web where you can buy and sell anything. And I mean anything, from stuff that you smoke to things that go boom to even body parts and assassinations. And all of it would be shipped right to your door by the federal government's postal service in some cleverly disguised packages.
The first real-world application I had ever heard of in Bitcoin was called Silk Road. It was launched in 2011. It was a website accessible through an IP address obscuring software where users could buy and sell things in a censorship-resistant and free way. It quickly became Bitcoin's first major use case.
The site went so viral that by age 28, Ross was on track to become a billionaire within just 2 years. And the Silk Road community called him the Steve Jobs of the online drug world. And if the Silk Road was a startup, at its peak, it would have easily been considered a unicorn, the elusive term for a startup that's worth over $1 billion. And at that peak in 2012, this is what Ross had to say when asked by his friend where he wanted to be in 20 years from now. This was before anyone knew he was the man behind the Silk Road.
I want to have had a substantial positive impact on the future of humanity by that time.
Do you think you're gonna live forever?
I think it's a possibility. I honestly do. I think I might live forever in some form.
Ross already knew he was going down in history, but not as the hero that freed people from the tyranny of the US war on drugs as he hoped people will remember him as, but as a villain that got people addicted, that got people killed, America's very own Kingpin, an internet kingpin. And less than 3 years after the site launched, he was arrested, charged with 7 felonies, and sentenced not to 1, but 2 life sentences plus 40 years in prison without parole, as a first-time nonviolent offender.
And now he'll spend the rest of his life in prison for it, which is really a shocking outcome of this. I don't think anyone expected such a harsh sentence.
The prosecution wasn't even asking for it, were they?
I covered cybercrime for a technology magazine. I've never heard of such a long sentence for something someone did with a computer, essentially.
He was ordered to serve 2 life sentences plus 40 years in prison, despite the fact that he was a first-time offender convicted of no violent crimes. He served almost 8 years of that sentence to date.
Can you hold an alleged website host responsible for the actions of the users on his site?
This is Internet Kingpin, the epic rise and fall of the criminal mastermind behind the Silk Road. A story that spans multiple continents filled with corrupt cops, paid assassinations, lots and lots and lots of money, and a road to hell paved with the good intentions of a young, idealistic genius.
Very sophisticated, very intellectual individual who took those skills and those talents and developed an online website that marketed illegal goods, illegal services.
Investigators say Ulbricht tried to execute a murder for hire on that user, offering $150,000 to a would-be hitman.
Part of why, you want to speak out a little bit is you're frustrated.
Absolutely. The most frustrating thing is that evidence that is favorable to Ross is being suppressed.
The operator made $80 million in fees.
It used Tor and Bitcoin to protect people's privacy. I called it an anonymous market. At the time, I thought, if Bitcoin makes payments anonymous and private, then what are we waiting for? Why are we sitting around talking about it? Let's put it into action. That's impulsive. That's a 26-year-old who thinks he has to save the world before someone beats him to it. Sometime later this century, I'll grow old and die. I'll finally leave prison, but I'll be in a body bag.
One of the things you could buy on the Silk Road was a very popular substance that comes in the form of a white powder that acts as a stimulant that gives you loads of energy and confidence that is very popular on Wall Street. The problem with this substance is that it's addictive, has bad long-term side effects, and is maybe a little illegal. Just overall not good for you. Luckily for you, you don't have to resort to buying this stuff off the dark web if you want loads of energy and confidence because we have genius consciousness. a phenomenal nootropic that I take almost every day to put my brain into high gear. If you guys have never tried a nootropic before, you are sorely missing out, especially if you're trying to do something big with your life, like Ross. The best way I can explain what taking a nootropic feels like is that it's kind of like nitrous from the Fast and the Furious, but for your brain. The gears start turning faster, there's less friction with your thoughts, you just feel sharper with less brain fog. A complete 9-day difference. I take this stuff almost every day I'm doing heavily creative work, and I am never going back. All you have to do is get water, genius consciousness, spoon, and it lasts me throughout the entire time I'm working. And the way you should think about this stuff is as an investment. If taking this leads to me making more money than not taking this, then I'm actually losing out on money by not buying this. And I'm fairly certain that the extra creative boost this gives me a much higher ROI than what this actually costs out of pocket. It's clinically proven with trademark ingredients that are all natural, there's no prescription required, and they have over 17,000 reviews on Amazon. And Genius was founded by my good friend Robert Oliver, who is a certified badass, not just some internet marketer that puts entrepreneur in his bio. And Rob is giving you guys a special 10% off when you go to the geniusbrand.com/JakeTrend and use code JakeTrend at checkout. That's the geniusbrand.com/JakeTrend with code JakeTrend with the link below. Pause the video, do it right now, and back to the video. Ross Ulbricht grew up in Austin, Texas in the late 80s and 90s. His father taught Ross how to think through every side of an argument, and his mother gave up her dream of becoming a journalist to bet everything on her golden son becoming successful. And Ross's story really begins when he went to college at Penn State. Like most people who end up changing the world, or at least tried to, he was a very smart and equally eccentric guy. He was an extreme minimalist, not caring about material possessions, wearing hand-me-down clothes, living in a basement, that kind of thing. That's where he met his long-term girlfriend Julia Vey, who always said how cheap he was. One night, Julia noticed a bunch of books near his bed and asked what they were. He explained that he was a part of the College Libertarians Club, a group that discussed libertarian philosophy, economics, and politics. When Julia asked what Libertarianism is, he explained that everything from what you do with your life to what you put in your body should be up to the individual, not the government. And Ross became obsessed with libertarianism. He would tell his ideas to anyone that would listen, he would travel around the country to attend libertarian conferences, he had an answer to every possible political argument and objection, and at one school debate, Ross argued that all drugs should be legalized. That not only is it not the government's right to tell people what they can and can't put in their bodies, but that legalizing drugs would actually make society safer. How can you legalize something that kills tens of thousands of people a year? The Republican and Democrat students argued, and Ross counters, should we outlaw Big Macs from McDonald's too? Because people gain weight and have heart attacks and die as a result of them? Should we outlaw cars because people get into car accidents and die? There are no gang wars over the sale of alcohol or Big Macs because those are legal. Millions of lives are ruined, most of the time over harmless drugs thrown into the prison industrial complex, all because the government wanted to tell people what they can and can't do with their bodies. Needless to say, Ross won that debate. The only problem was that theoretical debates were great and all, but what would he actually do with his life that both aligned with his libertarian beliefs, make him a boatload of money, and make his parents proud of him at the same time? So he dropped out of college, moved back to Austin with his girlfriend, and started his hunt for that golden idea. Ross seemingly tried everything. He started a video game company, an investment fund, did odd jobs on Craigslist, but nothing was working. Nothing I've done has worked out, he complained. I really haven't accomplished anything great. I want to see some results. I want to be an entrepreneur, but I've tried all these different things and nothing has worked. I want to build something that is really successful. But then an idea struck him, an anonymous website where you can buy and sell anything. Things, especially drugs, that people couldn't get their hands on because of governments like the US. That way, instead of having to buy your favorite substance in person with some sketchy dealer, you can buy from the comfort and safety of your own home. If it took off, Ross fantasized, the US government would eventually have to legalize drugs. And it would be proof that the best way to stop drug violence was to legalize it. It had the potential to completely change the fabric of society. And he would be hailed as the person that single-handedly ended the war on drugs, while at the same time making a killing and making his parents proud.
It used Tor and Bitcoin to protect people's privacy. I called it an anonymous market. At the time, I thought, if Bitcoin makes payments anonymous and private, then what are we waiting for? Why are we sitting around talking about it? Let's put it into action.
And by 2009, the anonymous browser Tor was already a thing, and the last missing piece of technology Ross would need was released: Bitcoin.
Bitcoin made me feel like anything was possible. I got so excited. I thought, with Bitcoin, I can try to do something that actually makes a difference. I was trying to do something good. I was trying to help us move toward a freer and more equitable world. But we all know the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? And now here I am. I'm in hell.
And to explain how the Tor network works and why it was instrumental in making the Silk Road possible, here's my good friend Kaya from Slidebean to explain.
Let me explain how the Tor network works. When your computer or phone connects to the internet, say to YouTube, you are creating a connection between two computers essentially, because YouTube, in the end, the server is a computer, right? Since YouTube uses HTTPS, that's the little lock on your browser. The information that you send to YouTube is encrypted. That is the message you send, say your login information, your password, that can't really be read by anybody, only by YouTube itself. To talk to YouTube, however, to talk to that server, your connection needs to go through the internet, through your internet service provider, which speaks to other servers and then routes that connection finally to reach the YouTube server. Now, the problem there is people could be snooping around that network. They might not be able to figure out what exactly you sent, but they could definitely know that this computer on one side connected to this address. That could go from hackers to trolls to, of course, the government and the police, or even foreign governments or hackers. Now, YouTube or any site that you connect to will know your address. They'll know what your IP address is, which means that they can easily find out who you are or where you are. So why would you want to avoid this? Well, maybe you don't want anybody snooping around your web activity because you're being careful. Maybe you do confidential work, or maybe you're trying to start an online black market, and if somebody found out what you're doing, you and your users would all end up arrested. So to avoid this, the Tor network was invented by the US Army, no less. And if you want to use it on your computer, all you have to do is install the Tor browser. So instead of connecting directly to that server, what your computer is going to do is it's going to use a set of relay computers that anybody, even you, could host. You could host a relay computer if you wanted to. And they're going to be called nodes. Now, internet communication, calls, messages, website requests, it all works by sending packets of data. So each packet contains a piece of information, just a piece of the whole puzzle, maybe a fraction of text or an image or a video. And then what Tor is going to do is it's going to wrap those packets in layers, just like an onion. So your computer is going to establish a communication with each one of those nodes, and it's going to give them a key. So the first node only really has the key to the password to unlock the first layer of this. So they can remove the layer, they certainly know where it came from, but it doesn't know what's inside the onion. All the information they get is, hey, please forward me here. Now after that, the message will move to the second node, and the second node can do the same thing. They can remove another layer. And after removing that layer, all it knows is it needs to move the packet to somewhere else. It knows where it came from, but that's no longer the original destination, and it knows it needs to be forwarded somewhere. So the third node is special. The third node is called an exit node. And then that third node can remove a final layer. So it can still read the message if the server that you're connecting to is encrypted, it has HTTPS. But it definitely knows the final destination of the message. It just has no way of knowing where it came from. So if anybody is listening through this whole connection, all they can really see are encrypted messages being forwarded from one node to the other, but no way of knowing the origin or the final destiny. And that's how the Tor network works. Now, can the network be hacked? Well, yes, it does have some weaknesses, especially towards that exit node, but I'm not gonna hijack Jake's video.
Thanks, Kaya. I'm featured in the video on the influencer economy, which will be linked below. Slybeat, in my opinion, has the best startup content on YouTube with some insane production quality, so make sure you subscribe with the link below. By the summer of 2010, Ross started working on what would become the Silk Road, and it was no easy task. It was basically the equivalent of building eBay or Amazon on your own without any knowledge, experience, or funding. So he had to teach himself front-end and back-end code on the fly. And plus, since it was illegal, there was no one he could turn to for help when he ran into coding issues. But little by little, the site came together. But there was still one problem. He couldn't market the site for potential sellers to sell on it, so where was he gonna get the product to sell on the website to start out? The solution? He read a dummy's guide on building your own mushroom farm, rented out a building in the middle of nowhere, and grew his own inventory. An investment that cost him around $17,000 and could have landed him in prison for 5 to 99 years in Texas. Being that the Silk Road would end up generating him around $80 million in fees, this original $17,000 investment would give him a staggering 500,000% return. The end of January 2011. It's been around half a year since Ross first started working on the Silk Road, and today it was finally time for opening day. By now, Ross had essentially done the work of a 12-person startup. He was the front-end developer, back-end developer, database expert, Tor expert, Bitcoin expert, CEO, COO, investor, and so on. Some estimates say it would have cost at least around $1 million of funding to replicate the site, and he still didn't know if anyone wanted to use it. But he felt that in some strange cosmic way, this site was why he was here, to free people from the tyranny of an oppressive government. He double-checked everything from the product inventory to the database and server, and boom, the Silk Road was live. And here's how it worked. First, you download the Tor browser, then you typed in this URL in the Tor browser, and then the website with the iconic green camel logo appeared. From there, you can navigate to your favorite product categories. The one product listed was mushrooms, and then you bought some Bitcoin, just like you would buy tokens at an arcade. Ross had written some instructions on Silk Road's blog about how to do that, and then you would buy, the package would be shipped to your doorstep, and afterwards, you would leave a review to keep the marketplace healthy and drive out bad sellers. And to get people to know about the site, Ross had a simple marketing strategy. At exactly 4:20 p.m. on January 27th, Ross went on relevant forums and acted like a random person who just came across the Silk Road and was recommending it to people. And it worked. People were already browsing the site in no time. After a few weeks, Ross was shipping out orders once or twice a week. He would vacuum seal the product and ship them off in padded envelopes. At this point, the postal service didn't have many resources. All the high-tech equipment to check for illegal stuff was reserved for big shipments, and sniffing dogs only came in a few times a month. And after a couple months of business, he was now shipping out products daily. And he was no longer the only seller on the sites. A few new sellers joined the ranks selling harder, stronger products. This made his girlfriend worry because selling harder products could attract trouble compared to selling more harmless substances. But Ross became obsessed. And by March 2011, 2 months into business, Ross had already made a few $1,000s in revenue. Eventually, the site caught the attention of a journalist that wrote about internet culture named Adrian Chen. When he first heard about it, he thought for sure it had to be a hoax, because who would be stupid enough to make a site like this? But then he went to the website and found out for himself. He saw exactly 343 different kinds of products available, all for street prices or less than street prices. He created an account named Adrian802, then he posted on the forum asking if anyone wanted to be anonymously interviewed for the article. One guy, a software developer, said buying products on the Silk Road kinda felt like I was in the future. Ross saw the journalist snooping around and figured that there was no way to stop him from writing the article, so he might as well use it as a way to get his libertarian message out there. So he gave the journalist this statement.
Stop funding the state with your tax dollars and direct your productive energies towards the black market.
And at 4:20 p.m. June 1st, 2011, Adrian's article went live on Gawker, the underground website where you can buy any drug imaginable. And the first paragraph read, "Making small talk with your pot dealer sucks. Buying cocaine can get you shot. What if you could buy and sell drugs online like books or light bulbs? Now you can. Welcome to Silk Road." After that article was published, it went viral. Everyone was talking about it, every news outlet was talking about it, and subsequently, traffic to the site exploded and so did the price of Bitcoin.
A new website sells illegal drugs to anyone who is willing to pay.
You're talking about that psychedelic store,
yes,
where you can buy anything you want.
Yes, there's a store that if you set up your computer correctly, like you have to put like some kind of make it random, like IP addresses, so it's not trackable. Then you can access this one website called the Silk Road. Yeah.
But then just 4 days later, the Silk Road also caught the attention of the US government. Senator Chuck Schumer stood in front of a podium in front of national TV, and this is what he had to say. "It's a certifiable one-stop shop for illegal drugs that represents the most brazen attempt to peddle drugs online that we have ever seen. It's more brazen than anything else by light years." And he called for the DOJ and DEA to shut down the site immediately. Ross had picked a fight with the biggest bully on earth, and they were about to fight back. Ross turned to his girlfriend and said they painted a bullseye on my back. The government would come to tremble at the thought of the Silk Road, not simply because it sold substances, but because it threatened their power, it threatened their control. They viewed it as a direct attack on the very fabric of America. Whoever was behind the Silk Road was using the internet built by the government, a browser built by the government, the postal service built by the government, to brazenly break the law right in front of their eyes, and there was nothing the government could do about it. In their eyes, America was under attack, but not with 747s flying into buildings, but it was being attacked in slow motion through a website that wanted to topple the country's democracy. The Silk Road wasn't just some traditional racket, it was a lucrative startup. And just like how Google started with search engines, and now have branched out into things like self-driving cars, the problem with the Silk Road was also what it could be. It had to be stopped dead in its tracks before the movement caught on and became too powerful. Or in other words, Ross Ulbricht was outshining the master. 8 months have gone by since Chuck Schumer called out the Silk Road, and the site has been booming like crazy, and the media taunted the government for not taking it down yet.
I am just amazed that a website like this can stay up for so long.
It was around this time that a key agent from the Department of Homeland Security joins the hunt. Leading up to this point, Ross had just been going by the name admin on the site, but him and his new anonymous business partner named VJ came up with a new nickname for Ross, Dread Pirate Roberts from the movie The Princess Bride, and the Silk Road community ate it up. Before, Ross was just a faceless admin, but now he was a feared pirate taking on the US government. It was a rally call for everyone involved. You weren't just slinging or buying product on the Silk Road, you were now part of a movement. Just like how Cuba fought for communism under Che Guevara, and how creative hipsters fought to think differently under Steve Jobs. The war on drugs now had Dread Pirate Roberts, also known as DPR, also known as Captain. And after only 1 year in business, Ross Ulbricht was now a millionaire. And it was around this time that a corrupt DEA agent joins the hunt. It's 2012 and Ross was now making so much money that he was having a hard time laundering all of it into cash. Back in December, he was making $500,000 in sales a month. By March, he was hitting $500,000 in sales in a week. At this rate, it would be $1 million in sales every week. And worst case scenario, 2012 would be a $100 million year for the company. And by 2013, it would be $1 billion year. Ross was now making $10,000 a day in fees, and thanks to Bitcoin going up in price, his net worth was doubling or tripling every few weeks. It was around this time that corrupt DEA agent Carl Force creates an anonymous account on the Silk Road named Knob and starts chatting with Ross posing as a professional criminal. And now it was time to monetize the site even more. Every founder and startup goes through this phase. They introduce a new feature to make them more money, a paywall, ads, higher prices, etc. The users go mad but eventually get over it, and Ross went through the same thing. The original fee structure for sellers was a flat 6.23% commission for every sale made, no matter how large or small. Now it was bumped up to a 10% commission for orders less than $50 and 1.5% for orders over $1,000. Smaller dealers were outraged. Ross didn't understand because in his eyes, if it wasn't for him, they would still be risking their lives selling in the streets, but eventually they got over it. Back in 2004, Ross made a silent deal with himself that by age 30, he would be a billionaire. At this point, he was 28 and a multi-millionaire. And at the hockey stick growth they were headed on, that dream of becoming a billionaire by age 30 was starting to look pretty realistic. Ross realized that this website would be his life's work, his legacy. The next goalpost was $1 billion in sales in a year, and to do that, they were going to need to expand. Ross's business partner argued that they should open a second website just for selling those things that shoot a projectile at a high speed that YouTube doesn't like you talking about. He argued that these products scared off mainstream customers, that we needed a dedicated website for them so the grandma looking to buy her meds wouldn't trip over a Glock in the aisle. Dread Pirate Roberts DPR would also approve the sale of poison and body parts that were apparently acquired consensually. It was around this time that a bunch of government agencies wanted in on the case all of a sudden. One of them would be FBI Special Agent Chris Tarbell that would eventually arrest Ross, nicknamed the Elliot Ness of online crime after the guy that took down Al Capone. And then things started getting really shady on both DPR's side and the law enforcement side. Meanwhile in Utah, corrupt DEA agent Carl Force, also known as Knob, raided the house of a Silk Road moderator named Curtis Green. Curtis Green had an account with a lot of access, so the agent uses his account to steal $350,000 of Bitcoin from DPR not as an official seizure, but for his own personal pocket. Posing as the moderator he just arrested. So DPR was put in a tough spot. On one hand, the amount of money stolen wasn't too much compared to how much money he was bringing in, but on the other hand, if he didn't retaliate against his moderator, it would show the community that you can steal from the boss without any repercussions. So in just 8 words, DPR sanctioned the first murder for the Silk Road. And who pretends to accept that hit job? The same corrupt cop that just arrested that moderator for $40,000 upfront and another $40,000 after the hit was done. DEA agent Carl Force was now a double agent and would go on scamming DPR for around $750,000 in total.
I'm playing both sides so that I always come out on top.
After all, why not? It was the opportunity of a lifetime since he had all the access and Bitcoin was anonymous. For DPR, $100,000 here to get tipped off about the cops, $500,000 there for an assassination, was just the cost of doing business. You leave thousands of fingerprints behind you every single time you're online, even if you're careful. Ross was no different, and those fingerprints started to pile up. Ross had ordered 9 fake IDs to his place in San Francisco that ended up being intercepted by law enforcement. They didn't suspect he was a Silk Road founder yet, but now they had his location and photo. Then an IRS agent found an old post that was made on the site Stack Overflow, which developers used to ask coding questions. It was a coding question about Tor made by a user with the name Ross Ulbricht, before the username was changed to Frosty. The FBI uncovers the server's IP address through a misconfiguration with the CAPTCHA element on the Silk Road's login page. You know, these annoying things. That server was also named Frosty, and that IP address led right back to Ross in San Francisco. DHS agent Jared gets a hold of another moderator's account to monitor DPR's activity. With all the signs pointing to Ross Ulbricht, the FBI starts stalking him before moving in for the attack. The only problem was, they needed to catch him on his laptop logged in, or else they may never be able to decrypt the laptop and prove that he was indeed Dread Pirates Roberts. Ross Ulbricht was arrested exactly at 3:16 p.m. on October 1st, 2013, a day earlier than planned. At the time, he had been renting a room in San Francisco for $1,000 a month, which is strange to say the least for a future billionaire. That afternoon, he headed out in search for better Wi-Fi and a change of scenery, never thinking that a team of FBI agents were circling his block. After finding most of his usual spots overcrowded, Ross headed for the Glen Park Library.
The FBI arrested Ross William Ulbricht, a San Francisco resident, in a public library.
The secretive Dread Pirate Roberts was arrested in the most unlikely of places, this local public library in this San Francisco neighborhood.
3:06 p.m. Ross sat down at a library table and started up his laptop. 3:08. Undercover agent Jared made contact on the Silk Road chat, hoping to get Ross to sign into the site. 3:13. A female undercover agent took a seat at Ross's table. 3:14. Ross logged into the Silk Road admin, and Special Agent Tarbell gave the go order. 3:15. An undercover agent yelled "F you" in the quiet library to create a distraction. Ross stood up trying to figure out what was going on, and within seconds the agent sitting next to Ross slips his laptop away from him. Before Ross could react, someone grabs his arms from behind and the FBI swarms in, guns blazing. 3:16. Ross is cuffed and his laptop seized. Ross was transported to the Alameda County Jail. His laptop was being carefully backed up dozens of times in as many different ways as the FBI team could think of. Ross arrives in New York for his trial and was held in the same cell that Al-Qaeda terrorist and mafia boss John Gotti were held in. Ross got a famous lawyer that has defended some of the most notorious criminals on American soil, and he turned down a plea deal for 10 years to life, still certain that he would win. But then Ross pleaded this in his final statement. "I've had my youth, and I know you must take away my middle years, but please leave me my old age. Please leave a small light at the end of the tunnel, an excuse to stay healthy, an excuse to dream of better days ahead, and a chance to redeem myself in the free world before I meet my maker." But in the end, the government showed no mercy.
The biggest criminal trial in the history of the internet is over this morning, and so apparently is Ross Ulbricht's freedom.
The Dread Pirate Roberts was now 30 years old, but instead of being a billionaire as he hoped, he was found guilty on all 7 felony counts and was sentenced to 2 life sentences plus 40 years in prison without parole, as a first-time non-violent offender, a sentence that is unheard of for cybercrime.
He said, "Mom, it's a death sentence. It just takes longer." And he's right. This is for all non-violent charges.
This is what the judge had to say about her decision.
She actually explicitly said in her statement that she wanted to send a message with this. The prosecution asked for that. She said, yes, this was unprecedented. I'm going to set a precedent so that any other potential young online drug lords will think twice about following in your misguided footsteps, as she said.
The judge came back and said, no, you wanted this to be your legacy, right?
Right. She said, you want this to be your legacy, you wanted it to be your legacy, and now it is.
I was trying to do something good. I was trying to help us move toward a freer and more equitable world. But we all know the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? And now here I am. I'm in hell. The caricature they created was a violent lord. That is not who I am. That is a lie. It's a lie that was carefully crafted to justify keeping me in this cage until I die. It's a lie designed to turn you against me, to turn your heart off. They stole. 2 of them went to prison over the stealing. They destroyed evidence. At one point, they were looking into how they could give me the death penalty. The irony is that I made Silk Road in the first place because I thought I was furthering the things I cared about. Freedom, privacy, equality. But by making Silk Road, I wound up in a place where those things don't exist. Sometime later this century, I'll grow old and die. I'll finally leave prison, but I'll be in a body bag.
When news broke of his life sentence, people cheered.
You're breaking up the social fabric of our country.
They applauded when the judge announced Ross would be in jail forever.
This is the judge who finally got it right.
Right. All right. We all agree here on that?
Concur.
Life in prison without parole?
Yep.
Anybody else, any of the wise guys want to do it? That's what you're going to get.
But does shutting down the Silk Road and throwing Ross in prison actually help 8 years later? No, not one bit.
It's not like they got rid of these things. Here's another one.
And by the way, Silk Road had 12,000 listings when it was taken down.
The news sites offer more than 100,000.
So I guess they weren't scared by Ross's life sentence, as the judge said.
So they didn't stop anything.
No, there was a spike after the sentence was given. It had the opposite effect. It's a travesty what's going on.
As for the apparent assassinations, Ross claims that law enforcement planted the evidence in his laptop and no bodies were ever found. I can see both sides. So what's your verdict? If you think he's innocent or should be at least let out of prison, you can sign the petition with the link below that has almost 500,000 signatures. I signed it and I'm sure the Trend Mafia can get it over 500K. And you can also donate and take action at freeross.org. This is what his mother had to say when I asked what the donations go towards, which I have no reason to doubt it's his mom. All the links are in the video description below. So what do you think of Ross? Is he a hero? Is he a criminal? Do you think he was just asking to get in trouble? Do you sympathize with him? Let me know in the comments below. And guys, I believe people have a fundamental right to put whatever they want in their body, even if it's bad for them, which includes hard drugs. I do not endorse doing hard drugs. In fact, I highly advise against it, even though it's your fundamental right. Guys, don't do drugs. Instead, do genius consciousness. Like I mentioned, I take genius consciousness almost every single day I do hard creative work because I feel the edge it gives me when I take it versus when I don't take it. Again, a little hard to explain in words, but it really is a night and day difference from when you take it and when you don't take it. And I'm pretty confident that the ROI that I get from this, the extra money that I make, thanks to the extra creative power that I have from taking this, vastly outweighs the small cost of this. And that is how you guys should think about this stuff, an investment into your brain and your productivity. A lot of us invest money into supplements for our muscles, which is a completely normal thing in society to do. I do it myself too. That's a good thing. But why isn't it also normal to invest into stuff for our brain? Why is that such a foreign concept? When investing in our brain has such an infinitely higher ROI in our modern economy compared to investing in our muscles, which is still important. So let's normalize investing in our brain together, be more productive together, while at the same time helping yourself, helping myself, and helping my good friend Rob over at the Genius brand by picking up Genius Consciousness with the link below. Check it out, I promise you would not regret it. Also, forgot to mention, I know this is a lot of plugs, but don't forget to check out the video I collab with Slybean about the influencer economy with the link below. If you enjoy my videos, you're gonna love Kaya's. If you are new to this channel, we make video essays just like this one every single week on the most provocative stuff in the world of business, just like this video on crime, business, power, geopolitics, all of the above. All you have to do is click that red button below and turn on the notification bell too. If you want behind the scenes stuff, day in the life kind of stuff, you can follow me on Instagram at jaketrend.io. That is gonna wrap it up for this video. Thank you so much for watching. You've been awesome. I've been Jake. Stay dangerous out there, and I will see you guys in the next one.